And around the country. Let's bring in Joe Lowndes. He's a professor of political science at the University of Oregon. Why don't we start there in Arizona? Because I find it fascinating. I mean, this is the home to Barry Goldwater, who's one of those key conservatives from back in the 60s who ran for president of the United States. John McCain, another Republican who ran for president of the United States. Now you have two Democratic senators, and it looks likely that this state tilted towards Joe Biden. Talk to us about that change alone.
Yeah, well, Arizona has been kind of beginning to trend blue for some time. It's a very, it's a southwestern state. It's a Sun Belt state. Parts of it are rural, parts of it are very conservative. But really beginning back in 2010 when there was an aggressive push towards demonizing undocumented residents there in the state under Governor Brewer, there began to be sharpened tensions between the left and right. Or between Democrats and Democratic progressives and what was becoming an increasingly far right in Arizona. And that's kind of moved along over time, made more sharply divided over the legacy of John McCain and the way that Trump dealt with him after his death, which also moved members of the McCain family to come around and support Biden. So you've got a strong Latino vote. You've got a big urban vote and labor vote generally in Phoenix and other major cities, Flagstaff. And then you've got, kind of suburban voters who are increasingly, and particularly suburban women, increasingly moving outwards towards Democratic voting.
Joe, let me ask you about the international stage and how that changes under a Biden administration, because clearly he's the one who believes in these institutions. One would suspect he'll go back into the WHO, the Paris Climate Accord. How do you see things shifting under a President Biden?
Well, those are two things that he probably will do right away. Is he has said on day one he's re-entering the Paris Climate Accords, and he will re-enter the World Health Organization, which is something that I think almost any other president, Republican or Democrat, would do. He's likely to restart treaty talks, arms reduction talks with Russia, and he will attempt to rebuild kind of multilateral, probably trade agreements and discussions and many forms. There's many levels of cooperation that happen internationally among countries. And a lot of that was gutted in the State Department under Trump. Really, almost the entire department kind of emptied out. So there's going to have to be a lot of rebuilding, and a lot of the international connections come among kind of lower level bureaucrats and agency workers. So there's going to have to be probably a slow period of rebuilding from the bottom up as Biden makes more symbolic gestures to opening up and reaching out to the world.
Joe, as you were talking, we were showing images of Biden, and the one thing that's been striking in this campaign is you see him in a mask almost always, whereas Donald Trump, that is not the case. And just yesterday, it was reported that Mark Meadows, the chief of staff, has COVID. It looks like maybe 4 other staffers at the White House also with COVID-19. Talk to us about the striking differences we'll see there as well.
Well, Biden campaigned on the idea that we were entering we're in the midst of 4 historic crises. And the first 2, the pandemic itself and the economic crisis, the extraordinary economic crisis that came right on its heels, are 2 things that he has made it a priority to address. And part of it is, presidents are also, they're symbolic figures or cultural figures, and they set a tone. And the tone that Biden set throughout his campaign, and that he will during his presidency, I think, is the idea that we have to take as measures, be as cautious as possible as we attempt to navigate what's going to be a very difficult few months. It's not going to be easy because there's only so much the Biden administration can do to roll out a vaccine quickly. There's only so much the president, frankly, can do in a federalist system to get states to comply with national mask mandates or other kinds of protocols. But I think the idea is to set a tone whereby states will want to, and the American public will see this as a set of priorities. But again, it's going to be a long winter, and there's going to be no easy answers to these rising numbers.
Yeah, there's no question it's going to be a difficult task ahead. Joe, talking about Joe, the presumptive president of the United States, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.